Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 268 with Rod Courtney. First off, I really enjoyed Rod's book, so I asked Rod to be here. He talks about the 8 habits of a great safety culture. It really it resonated with me, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit anal. I like to see almost like a habit one, habit two, habit three that really helped me to stay focused and to um, digest it, not just read it for the sake of reading it and stick it on the shelf, but something that I could read a habit, stop and say, how do I want to apply this habit in my life? Or am I doing it and I can do a better job, fine tune that whole thing then? So, Rod, could you tell a little bit about yourself and then we'll just cover the 8 habits and then just start talking about them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Rod Courtney, and I started my career in the United States military. So, I was an Army combat medic in the early '90s, or through the '90s, actually. When I got out of the military, I went into law enforcement for a little while. Long story short, I ended up in safety. It was actually completely by accident, which is a whole podcast by itself. But I worked for a few companies in their safety department, and I took a job with KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root, for the LOGCAP 3 project in Iraq. And so I went over to Iraq as a civilian contractor in 2003, right at the beginning of the global war on terror. And while I was there, my thought process when it came to culture, I was thinking about the different cultures between the Middle East and the United States, right? So I'm seeing things that are like, wow, if I had been born here, I would do things that way, or, just how different things were. So that's where the
Mhm,
culture part of this started for me. And then while I was there, I read a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
mhm,
Been on the bestseller list for many years. Stephen Covey wrote it. Phenomenal book. And so I had this idea. Let's create habits. At the time it was seven step-by-step things you can do to create to create a sustainable safety culture. And so I started jotting down notes. And to be honest, the habits 6 and 7 have changed over the years. And I'm not so egotistical to think they may not change down the road. But habits 1 through 5, they haven't changed in 25 years. They are the same today as they were back then, and they'll be the same 25 years from now. If you can work that process, habit 1 through 5, you create a foundation for any kind of safety program you want to put on top of that. So the book was written actually for the operations side of the house, for them to understand what it is we as safety professionals do. So, David, I'm sure you remember the times when we were just the rule enforcers.
yes,
You're in charge
exactly.
of you're in charge of handing out the
Hmm.
PPE, or you need to go out there and find them doing stuff wrong or whatever.
Yep,
So
yep,
the
exactly.
idea of this was to explain, look, if you want a sustainable culture, do it. Habit 1 through 5 was written sequentially. It needs to be in that order, right? So you start at number one, number two, go to 5. When you get there, you've got a solid foundation and you can move on and build your safety program. But I wrote it for operations so they could understand this is the process. This is what safety professionals do. Not we're not your safety cops. And so while I was in Iraq, I started writing it. That was in 2003, 2004, and it sat on the shelf, partially written for many years. I'd go back to it, back and forth, back and forth. And a good friend of mine wrote a book about safety. And in the book, he mentions me as someone he admires. And I started thinking, you know what? I need to go finish this. And this was in 2021. And I decided I would go finish the book. I finished it and finally got it published.
Mhm. Yeah, it is a awesome book. Before that you do your 8 habits, let me see if I can hold it up. Can you see this good, Rod?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
can.
so this is going to be the cover that I want everybody to go out, look for, buy it. For me, it was really awesome. And I just really enjoyed it because, like you said, it comes from an operational standpoint. Safety guys can talk to safety guys, and that's awesome and that's great. But sometimes we don't get our point across. We struggle with how do we explain it to a person who, not that they don't care about safety, but they're focused on schedule and money and things just as much as safety. Whereas safety, luckily, we can be pretty focused on safety, and many times money and safety is kind of like something afterwards we think about, you know. I
Yeah,
mean, money and schedule, I'm sorry. We
yeah,
think about afterwards. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
hmm Yeah, yeah. So Rod, if you could name off the 8 habits and then we'll
Yeah.
just start going through them.
Yeah, absolutely. So
hmm
when I wrote each habit, they've been renamed a dozen times each. Um, and I wanted each habit to have a name that kind of stuck out, that made somebody go, wait, what? And want to read that part of the book. So the titles, or the titles of each chapter, the name of each habit, some of them are going to make you go, wait, what did he just say? And it's on purpose. But habit one is stop making safety a priority. Habit two is make it safe to raise concerns about everything. Habit three is make safety the responsibility of operations. Habit four is called focus left of zero. Habit five, the last of the foundational part, is stop managing people. Habit six is where we get into the actual safety part of things, and it's called stop trying to fix the worker and fix the work. Habit seven is find the sticky and stop the, or yeah, find the sticky and stop the sift. And habit eight is stop trying to influence everyone.
I really like that 8th habit because all of us know that when your message goes out to everybody, it's gonna nobody will get it. It's really hard. It's like you almost have to tailor your message for here's the guys who are welding, here's the guys in the office.
Yeah,
Just it doesn't mean that safety is totally different for those. It's just a different
yeah.
way of communicating your point.
It is. And there's so many different ways to do it depending on who you're trying to influence. And the fact is, David, if you try to influence everyone, you're going to end up influencing no one.
hmm
So and the reason there's an eighth habit, and I didn't stop at the 7 habits, based off the title of the book that I had read by Stephen Covey, is come to find out, the Covey Institute is very proud of the trademark that they have on these 7 habits.
mm
Rightfully so. It's a great book.
hmm
So I had to make some changes. I went out and purchased the trademark for the 8 habits. I created the eighth habit. Now, some people laugh at that and they're like, very funny. But the truth is, it worked out great because habits 1 through 7 tell you what to do. Habit eight tells you how to do it, right? It gives you some techniques, some skills that you can learn, some of them pretty easily, to identify certain people in your organization and influence that person. So it worked out really well with the eighth habit being in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Let's circle back and we'll talk about the first habit then. So,
Okay, well, the first
mhm,
habit is stop making safety a priority. And, most people today understand what I mean by that, but there are still, unfortunately, a lot of people, especially on the operation side, even still quite a few safety people that when you tell them safety is not a priority, they lose their mind. I mean, they get, whoa, what are you saying? You're the safety guy. So let me explain. When we wake up every morning, I like this morning, I knew that I needed to be here with you at 7 a.m. my time or 8 a.m. my time, whatever it was. I know if I need to go to the office. I know what time I need to leave my house in order to be at the office on time. No one wakes up in the morning at, if they need to leave the house by 7, they don't wake up at 7. Nobody does. They always wake up earlier than that in order to give themselves time to complete the things that they want to accomplish. Some people like to go to the gym, some like to watch the news, they want to take a shower, brush their teeth, comb their hair, drink some coffee, whatever that list is. Me personally, I'm not a breakfast eater. I just never have been. But I do like coffee. And David, when I was in the military, we would wake up every morning and your feet hit the ground and buddy, you're moving. And I'll be honest, I hated that. I hated it. I love being in the Army. I'm very proud of the fact that I served, but I hated that part of it.
Mhm.
So now, since I'm grown and I get to make my own decisions, I choose to wake up way early because I want to give myself time to wake up slowly, drink coffee, and get my mind right. This morning, I knew I needed to be sitting here at 8 a.m. Not a problem. My alarm went off at 4:30 this morning. So I gave myself a long time to accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish before I knew I had to be here. Same thing. I have to leave to go to work. I know I need to leave the house by a certain time. If my alarm doesn't go off that morning, if I, for whatever reason, wake up late, and everyone listening to this podcast right now, that's happened to you. You've woke up late before. Now, if you wake up late and you absolutely need to be at work at a certain time, do all the things you were going to do prior to leaving the house change? Do you still have breakfast? Do you still go work out? Do you still have your coffee or watch the news or whatever it is that you were going to do? No, all that changes. Every bit of it changes. My guess is if you're running late enough, you won't brush your teeth or take a shower or anything. You're just going to get in the vehicle and start going. Chances are you'll break a couple of safety rules before, on your way there, right? Hey,
Mhm.
David, the
Mhm.
speed limit says it's 55, but I got places to be. I'm going 65,
Yep.
whatever. We're safety professionals and we do that,
Mhm.
right? So, but there is something, and there's one thing, and I've asked this question all over the globe. What's the one thing that everyone will always do this before they leave the house, no matter how late they are? And a lot of people, oh, I won't, I'll forget I'm going to get my phone or I'm going to go to the restroom or whatever. Maybe. Some people don't have phones. Some people don't need to go to the, whatever. Everyone gets dressed.
Right.
Everyone does,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Mhm.
And when you stop and think about it, most people are laughing right now, going, "Oh yeah, that's true." But you've never been so late for something you showed up naked, ever.
That's right.
Okay,
Exactly.
you know. But here in the United States, it's a fact. People die in house fires every single year because they want to get dressed before they leave a burning building.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
So getting dressed is not a priority. Getting dressed is a value. So, habit one is talking about two things. First and foremost, stop referring to safety as a priority. Refer to it as a value. Priorities, by definition, are designed to change. Now, a lot of people will say, "Oh, Rod, that's what we meant." I understand that's what you meant. Oh, that's just a play on word. No, it's not, because you have to understand here. First of all, habit one was designed purposefully to be simple to accomplish because we all know when the latest and greatest safety thing comes out, the people in the field are going, "Oh, great, here we go again. Another safety thing. Yay." They're not excited about it. Let's be honest. This gives them something to do that is very simple on purpose. Just stop referring to safety as a priority. Refer to it as a value. And then as we continue to go through these, we're not only going to refer to it as a value, we're going to treat it as a value. So habit one, just stop making safety a priority.
Yep, 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 yep. Exactly, exactly. So I have heard that at a lot of places that we really think it's, great. It's the first thing that we do every day. We make sure that people are safe and all that, but you won't find it written down. A lot of companies will have a list of this is going to be our values. This is going to be the things that we believe in.
Yeah.
Sometimes safety is on there then. I've also been to a couple places where they talked about it, and safety was a gigantic value. You could
Yeah.
not find it written down anywhere. So sometimes you can have it in a non-written form, but that has to
Absolutely.
be that operations is the owner. it can't be a safety person because
Exactly.
everybody will be safe when I'm there, but I can't be every in every place at every site. So it has to be a value led by others. It can't just be a value that shows up when I show up, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when I was uh, talking about my book coming out, this has been a few years back now, and when I put the words safety, habit, and culture in the same sentence, man, safety professionals, they chastised me. Oh, you can't do that. You can't say safety in the same. Look, let me just explain. Exactly like you just said. When I say culture, what is your safety culture? It's what your employees are doing when nobody else is around.
Exactly.
That's what
Hmm.
it is. Whether that's good or bad, but whatever that is what your culture is. And so that's what this book is designed to do is to help create a culture at that level that is sustainable and will create environments where our employees can fail.
Right. I have said before that probably my greatest point of pride would be if I got laid off, if they said, we really got the culture down. You know, it's awesome that you're here, Dave, but we think that your talents ought to be used some other place. You know,
Yeah,
thanks,
work my yep,
thanks for all the hard work and laying the foundation, but we got it from here. You know, I think
yep,
that that would be a really great thing as a safety person is that when they don't need you anymore
yep.
because it's so ingrained into the culture,
Just what they
you
do.
know.
Yeah, it's just
Right,
part of it. I do everything I can from day one to work myself out of a job.
right. Yes, yeah, perfect. That's right.
Absolutely.
Go. Mhm.
Yep. So habit two. So habit one was designed to be simple,
Mhm.
and any habit takes about 60 days. It goes anywhere from 55 to 65, but let's call it 60 days, 2 months. It takes about 2 months for something to become a habit. So what you do is you take habit one first and just do that for 60 days. Every communication that goes out, every time you talk about it, every time you hear other people talking about it, ask the question, is safety a priority? No, it's a value. Make sure it's in your corporate communications for 60 days. Don't worry about anything else for 60 days. Just do that. Then we can move on to the second habit, which is make it safe for people to raise concerns. And to be honest, this is the most difficult of the foundational habits because this is something that has been ingrained into our workforce for so long that it's very, very hard to break the old habit. Let's be honest. Does anyone actually believe, do you, David, believe that either in the industry or any industry that is, do you think all near misses are actually reported?
Oh
Of
no. Oh no,
course not.
very tiny bit of them are.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And as we move through the habits and we get into habit three and four, we're going to realize that those little, we're going to call them little things. And I'm going to stop little things at near miss. Now, understand a near miss is just something that occurred, an event actually happened, but no one was injured and no property was damaged. Now, a good catch, on the other hand, is they saw this before the event occurred and stopped it. So no event actually occurs in a good catch. Once the event occurs, but no property damage, no injury, it becomes a near miss. So
Hmm.
either or, good catch or near miss is where we're at on this one. Now, of course, if there's an injury, yes, we need all those reported. Yes, if someone if they're out, just blatantly breaking rules or stuff like yes, we need that stuff to document. But in this case, let's talk near misses. The fact is, you and I, as safety professionals, were taught to treat every near miss just as if it were an accident. That's what I was taught to
Hmm.
do growing up in safety. A
Right.
lot of you safety professionals out there right now, that's what you're being told to do. So let's look at that. If I have a crew that I've been real or a whole company that I've been saying, please report everything. I really need this information. And we start getting some of these crews to say, all right, let's try it. Let's test the waters and see how this works. We're going to report this near miss because Billy Bob, the lineman, slips on a ladder. No one's hurt, no property is damaged, but that is a near miss. Well, Billy Bob decides, okay, I'm going to tell my foreman that it happened because that's what the safety department's been begging me to do. Now, the foreman has a decision to make. Do I tell anyone about this or do I just keep it here? Well, we've been on him too. Please report everything. And he says, okay. So he calls David up. Hey, David, yeah, we had this happen. Billy Bob slipped on a ladder. Nobody's hurt, whatever. Now, David does exactly what he was trained to do. He treats that just as if it were just as if the accident had occurred. So what do? We go down and we shut the crew down. We get witness statements. We're probably going to barricade something off. We safety people like to barricade stuff.
Oh
So
yeah, you bet we do.
right,
Yeah.
right. We're going to barricade something else. So we get out the barricade tape, right? Then
Mhm.
we start writing reports. Then we got to do root cause analysis and all of this stuff. And then what we really like to do is what I call name, blame, shame, and retrain.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
the next morning, we're going to have a safety stand down and we're going to call Billy Bob up and tell him, hey, knucklehead, tell him what happened to you yesterday. And poor Billy Bob, the guy that slips on the ladder, is like, okay, well, and so we're going to name him and we're going to blame him and we're going to shame him. And then guess what? The whole crew's going back to ladder training. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a place for retraining. Okay, there is. But what I just did was not for retraining purposes. That was punitive.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Those guys didn't forget how to climb a ladder, David. There was an error that was made. And because I just treated that near miss that way, next week, another crew somewhere is going to have something similar happen. It might be the next day. It might be the same crew. Do you think for a minute that they're going to report that to you?
Oh no, what those guys saw is, whoa,
Uh-uh.
I tried to do the right thing and I got slammed for it.
That's it, buddy. And I'm going to
Mhm.
keep my mouth shut. So if there's not enough blood, if the bone's not completely broken, or if there's not complete damage to a vehicle, I'm not saying a word.
Yep.
So we have to stop that. All right. We have to change the way we respond to failure. And that's where we can show, and it does take time, more than 60 days. Okay, in order to create an environment where your employees truly feel safe reporting everything to you. They know they're not going to get beat down. They know you're not going to shut their job down. They know they're not going to get named, blamed, shamed, and shoved into retraining. That takes time to change that culture. You know, there's the story of the psychologist that built the cage. And I'm not sure how big it was. Let's call it a 20-foot by 20-foot cube a cage. And they put a step ladder, excuse me, in the middle of it, and they hung a banana from a string at the very top. And they put five monkeys in that cage. Well, a little while, one of the monkeys looks up and sees a banana and says, like, well, shoot, I'm a monkey and I like to eat bananas, so I'm gonna go get me a banana. You know, as soon as his first foot hit the bottom step of that step ladder, they spray all the other monkeys with ice cold water. A little bit later, they hung another banana. Well, eventually, one of the monkeys goes to get the banana. As soon as their first foot hits that bottom step, they spray all the other monkeys with ice cold water. And they do this over and over and over again. Eventually, what do you think happens when one of the monkeys tries to go to get that banana? He's walking towards the banana because he's hungry, and the other monkeys see him do this, and they know what's about to happen. What do you think they do?
The monkeys will step in and stop them.
Oh,
Oh.
they choke him
Hmm.
out. All
Hmm.
right, they go full MMA on it. All right, and choke him down. So now what they do is they take one of the monkeys out, one of the original monkeys, and put a brand new monkey in. Well, that monkey's never been exposed to any of this and looks around like, oh, look, a banana. So he goes to get the banana. The other monkeys, they don't even have to be sprayed with water anymore. They just go tackle him and keep him from getting it. Now
Hmm.
they take another monkey out, put a new monkey in, and they do this until all five monkeys in that cage are brand new. They've never been sprayed with water before, but they never attempt to get that banana. The reason is they have been conditioned to do that. Our employees in the field have been conditioned to not report near misses. Okay. We have to change that, and that does take time. Every company is going to be different. You just have to pick something, pick a way, and be consistent with that over the long term. Once you get to a point, and again, I'm not so egotistical to believe that every near miss will always be reported. We're humans. That's not going to happen. But if we can get the bulk of them reported and get the employees feeling safe about reporting those things to us, then, David, we can actually take data and make a huge, huge difference in our safety culture. So that's
Oh,
habit two. It's just we have to make it safe for everybody to report all their safety concerns.
yes, yes, yes. You bring up a very good point too, is that maybe not that the current place they're at is naming and shaming people, but if they've seen it at other companies, if they're kind of showing up with not just the culture that the company has, but other cultures. So
Yeah,
sometimes they've already been conditioned that right from the get-go, like, oh no, I've seen this story before. I'm not
yeah,
going to do anything about this, and just kind
yeah,
of let things happen. I also found that there's a lot of folks that the rule is not really written, but it's you keep your head down, you work hard, and go home. You know,
yep,
you're not supposed to chime in and say, "Hey, look, the following things happened," because then they're like, "Oh, well, now there's going to be a slowdown. Now there's going to be training. Now there's going to be," and so some people are really scared about that stuff. You know,
yep.
so an
That's not
ego,
what we tell them, though. That's not what we say,
exactly,
right? In the big executive meetings where the president comes down and does the safety days, and in the stand downs and the safety meetings, we're always telling them something different.
right,
But the culture is what they're doing when no one's around. So just like you said, they bring culture from their past, wherever that's been, whatever that company taught them, however they were raised. It unless they come into an environment, and it's going to take them some time still to kind of figure out, oh wow, they do things different over here. But unless they come into an environment and the environment's been created where they actually feel safe and they feel it's a positive thing, it's a good thing to report a near miss. Now, is a near miss a leading indicator or a lagging indicator? And I debated people on this one. The near miss itself is a lagging indicator. The reporting of the near miss is a leading indicator.
right. Right. So the one thing that's helped me, and I know culture is hard, is that there's never a absolute culture change, of course, overnight. But you go down with the person and you say, "Hey, I know this happened. Let's solve this issue together." And then the next day you talk about and you say, "I'd like to thank I think you said the guy's name was Billy Bob. I want to thank Billy Bob for bringing this issue forward. As a team, we're going to solve this and make sure because if it's happening here, it's probably happening at other job sites too. And you kind of
Absolutely.
you make it as positive, as good as you possibly can. But
Absolutely.
even that is not a overnight turnaround. That could still
No.
take a long time for people to say, well, wait a minute, that's just one out of 20 times it worked out.
Yeah.
We really kind of see. So it
There,
still takes time for that culture to build, of course.
100%. And two things on that. So first of all, when you do go out to the site or however you do it on Teams or whatever, and you acknowledge Billy Bob, all right,
Hmm.
this person. Number one, don't ask them to say anything in front of the crowd. Most people don't like that. Okay.
Right.
However, this is a fact. The sweetest words to the human ear is their own given name. Okay.
Mhm.
People like to hear their name being said in front of their coworkers. Just say his name. Good job, Billy Bob. Thank you for what you did. This is going to give us data to help create environments where we can actually have a safer work environment. Leave it at that.
Mhm.
Don't tell him, come up here and tell it. Don't.
Right, 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 right,
Unless he comes up to you and asks you to do it, don't, because most people don't like doing that. It makes them very uncomfortable, and all that's going to do is push them further away. So don't ask them to talk, but be sure to say their full name in front of their coworkers.
right, 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 right. Well, Rod, we are bumping up on time, so this has been awesome. We covered two of the eight habits. Then, so
Okay.
I'd like to extend a invitation and have you back, and then we'll cover the other one. So this was really good. I got a lot of value out of your book. I mean, for me, it really spoke to me because safety guys can talk to safety guys, you know, but you got to talk to that operations person. And the one thing that I really liked is you talked about getting input also. I can sit in my office and I can make the most awesome SOP policy training that's ever existed. And it may not be real at all. It may be something that I think is real, but I'm not the one that's doing it. It really has to be those guys.
Absolutely, 100%. And I tell people all the time, I can write you a safety procedure manual that will ensure you never have another injury again. Now you won't be able to leave the house. Okay.
Okay. Right,
Right.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
But I can proceduralize you into corners.
right, right, right.
And right, but that's the truth is when you put procedures out there like that are so stringent, the fact is they're just going to break the rules.
Eh,
They don't, you're not leaving them a choice.
Yep.
So that is absolutely part of it. But David, man, this has been an absolute pleasure, man.
Mhm,
And I would love to come back anytime you want, and we can
mhm.
talk about a few more of these. This has been a blast, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome. And Rod, before we go, could you tell folks how to find you out there?
Yeah. So the book's on Amazon. That's the best way to get it. I found out that even me as the author, if I go order books to sell, Amazon gets first dibs on them. And so it actually take it, you could get it faster through Amazon than I could buy it and sell it to you. Um, or bring to a conference. So
Mhm.
Amazon is the best way to find the book. But right now I'm the director of safety for Power Grid Services. And if anyone would like to shoot me an email or whatever, it's simple. It's R Courtney, Courtney at powergridservices.com. Shoot me an email. We can chat back and forth. If you have any questions about the book or comments, whatever, you can always go to Amazon and leave a review, but I can't really communicate back and forth with you there. But yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Fantastic, Rod. Thank you so much, bud.
All right,
And
buddy. Thank you.
with that, episode 268 is complete. Thanks again, Rod. Everybody have
Absolutely.
have a great day.